started with the basics of the Neewer ER-1 motorized camera slider. So this here is the 80 centimeter or 31.5 inch slider. This video will focus on the 80 centimeter length, but the Neewer ER-1 slider also comes in 100 centimeter, that's 39.4 inch, and 120 centimeter, 47.2 inch slider. So one thing to note is that the 80 and the 100 centimeter sliders don't come with a remote, but the 120 centimeter does. You can buy the remote separately though, which I chose to do and we'll cover in a few minutes. I'll link to the remote in the description if you're interested in checking it out. For all lengths, the slider has a horizontal load capacity of 5 kilograms or 11 pounds. And if the slider is tilted at a 45-degree angle, then the load capacity is reduced to 2.5 kilograms or 5.5 pounds. As for the actual weight of the slider, the 80 centimeter slider comes in at 5.3 pounds or 2.5 kilograms, while the 100 centimeter slider is 5.9 pounds or 2.7 kilograms, and the 120 centimeter slider is 6.1 pounds or 2.76 kilograms. Alright, so let's take a look at what the ER-180 comes with. So first, it comes in a nice soft padded bag. It has a carrying strap, but there's no shoulder straps on the side. Okay, let's take a look inside. So honestly, one of the most exciting things about this bag to me is that it comes with an extra zippered pocket. As a girl with crappy pants pockets, I am always excited when bags have pockets. The case also includes padded foam and 2 straps to help keep the slider in place. So here we have 6 shutter release cables, C1, C3, N1, N3, S1, and S2. For different types of cameras. These cables connect the slider to your camera so that you can do things like time lapses. And I'll test that out in a little bit. So next is a ball head. Looks like a pretty standard ball head to me. There's a knob to loosen or tighten the swivel of the ball. Another knob blocks the rotation of the ball head. And it includes a bubble level. The plate is loosened and tightened with a knob, which is one thing I didn't really like. It's not a quick release plate since loosening and tightening the plate to the ball head requires some time. And another thing I didn't like about the plate is that you need a tool to tighten the plate to the camera. So as a comparison, here's another quick release plate that I have. And you can see that I can quickly and easily pop out the plate, and then there's a ring at the bottom of the plate to easily hand tighten the connection between the plate and the camera without extra tools. So you might want to use your own tripod head with the slider. And next we have a cutout for the optional remote. Again, the 80 and 100 centimeter sliders don't come with remote, but the 120 centimeter does. So I did buy the remote, so let's test it out. And it fits pretty nicely. And next we have the battery for the slider and the battery charger. It is a USB-C connection for the charging port. The battery is a NP-F550 battery, so similar to what some Sony cameras use. I do like that the battery charger has a nice graphical display to indicate the status of the battery charging. There's also extra screws and a hex key. And of course we have the main attraction, which is the slider itself. So this model of slider was pre-built. I didn't have to attach the motor or thread the belt through the motor. It just came pre-assembled for me. And another advantage of the slider over older models is that you can store the slider in the bag with the motor and belt still attached for easier setup and storage. So I can just take it out and go. Just pull it out, and the motor is attached and the belt is already attached and threaded through the motor. So on each end you have adjustable
legs so that you can put the slider on the ground. And actually the feet themselves are adjustable too. You can make them different lengths. While we're looking at the bottom of the slider, just wanted to point out that there's a lot of connection points to attach to different mounts. So we have 3 at the end, and there's multiple connection points in the middle plate, and then 3 more at the other end. Okay, so for the slider plate itself, you also see there's a lot of mounting points here, and it has a nice bubble level. So you can adjust the tension of the belts with this knob on each end. This allows you to loosen or tighten the belt. So there's one knob on one end and another knob on the other end. So there's a knob here that will let you loosen or tighten the plate movement. So if I loosen it, then I'm able to move the plate. So if I tighten it down, it prevents the plate from moving. So let's start off with pairing the slider to the Neewer iPhone app. The pairing process is basically to make sure you have Bluetooth enabled on your phone, and then download and go into the Neewer app and tap the plus button. So I did have some trouble with initial pairing to the iPhone. The circle would keep swirling and not be able to connect. And the Neewer directions are pretty sparse, so I couldn't really find much help there. But luckily, a reboot of the slider fixed the issue. Just needed to power off the slider and then power it back on. And next I tried to pair the slider with the optional remote control. To pair the remote control, hold down the power and the photo buttons together and turn on the slider. So if you are interested in the remote, let me just cover it real quick. It comes with a screen at the top, a 4-way joystick that goes up, down, left, and right. There's a enter button, the back button, the power button, and a take a photo button. And there's a USB-C port for charging. So now let's talk about the slider performance. The slider is made of carbon fiber and aluminum alloy. The carbon fiber allows the slider to be more lightweight and absorbs vibrations, while the aluminum alloy adds structural integrity and strength. So the slider does seem sturdy. Here I tested the slider mounted on a tripod. There's a slight tilt due to the weight shift, but it actually performed better than I expected. There wasn't too much of a wobble as the camera reached the ends of the slider. But if you do get the 100 or 120 centimeter length sliders and you intend to use it on a tripod, then you'll definitely need to get the slider support arms to stabilize the slide. And I'll link to these support arms in the video description. So now let's do a speed test. The slider gives you a range between 1 to 100%. So let's try it out at 100% first. And you can see it'll take about 13 seconds to get from one end to the other end. So here's a split screen to illustrate the difference between 100% and 90%. And now let's make it even slower to 50%, which would take approximately 9 minutes and 17 seconds. So it's moving along ever so slowly. So off the bat, I have to say that the motor is really quiet. At 100% speed, there is a definite audible motor noise, but if you slow the slider down to 90% or lower, it's absolutely buttery smooth silent. So let me try to give you an example of 100% speed. Okay, and now let's try 90%. So the slider also allows you to track or pan shots by adjusting this middle bar. Now this 1-star review by Ocean says, the camera slider is just about perfect if you don't need it to track or pan. That's when the jittery camera motion kicks in. But I did not find this to be the case in my tests. Now I'm not a professional and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I still think I managed to get some nice smooth shots. So it's best if you're tracking large objects because the area of view does drift, so your objects might go out of the field of view. Now let's take a deeper look into what the app and the remote allow the slider to do. So both the app and the remote functions are essentially broken into 3 categories. There's video mode, time-lapse, and manual. Now we're in the manual screen. In the manual screen, you can change the slide speed. So there's 2 options, constant and slow. Constant is just going to be a constant speed throughout, and slow will do a gradual ease in. Okay, now let's do a comparison of the movement selection of slow versus constant. And very simple, press the right button to start the slider moving right. To stop the slider, press the right button again. Go left, press the left button. To stop the slide, press the left button again. Manual mode with the remote is just as easy. The only thing different is that what is called movement selection in the app is called gradient on the remote. Gradient set to Y for yes is the same thing as the slow selection in the app. Gradient set to N for no is equivalent to constant in the app. Just as in the app, you can set the slider speed. To start the slide, go down to start and tilt the joystick in the direction you want to move. To stop the slide, tilt the joystick in the direction it's already moving. The remote control is a little quirky. For example, the slider was moving right when it was stopped, as you can see with the right arrow next to start. And if I tilt the joystick left to start a left slide, the slider moves left, but the remote still says start, but now with the left arrow icon. To stop the slide, I actually have to tilt the joystick twice to the left. The first left tilt just changes the start to stop, and then the second left tilt actually stops the slide. So that takes a little getting used to. So before I start with the video mode, there's one thing I need to mention. You can set 2 positions on the slider called points A and B. What's odd is that you can set the A and B points via the app, but not with the remote. And based on the remote instructions manual, it seems like maybe you can set the points for the older VS80, VS100, WS 2.4G sliders, but for the ER-1 slider, I couldn't find a way to do that. So it might be user error though, so please comment below if you know how to set the A and B points via the remote. Alright, so let's start with video mode on the phone app so that I can set my A and B points. To set the A and B points, you can either go to live video or time-lapse mode. So let's go to live video. And at the top here, we can customize our points. Let's reset it. We're going to set the first position of A. So to move the slider, press the arrow button once. To stop it, press the arrow button again. And hit OK to set position A. Then I'm going to move to position B, which is my stop sign. Right there, and hit OK. So AB point setting is complete, and we'll hit save. So we're going to go from point A to point B. Our sliding speed is 95%, which will take a one-way trip duration of 14 seconds. The movement selection is constant. Okay, so let's try start. Goes from A. And it stops at position B.
With the app, you can save your current positions and settings as a favorite by tapping on the heart icon. To access and reload your favorite settings, tap on the folder icon. And then you can rename your favorites for better organization. Now video mode on the remote is similar. You can set whether the slider will loop the motion. You can set the gradient. As mentioned earlier, you can't seem to set the A and B points from the remote directly, but the remote will abide by the A and B positions that were set in the app. On the remote, you can select whether the slider will move to point A or move to point B. The remote will show you the duration of the slide. Then to start, select start and press the enter button.
Time-lapse is a video technique where photos or frames are captured at set intervals and played back quickly to make slow events appear to happen much faster.
For time-lapse mode, the remote and app are similar.
So you can set where the slider moves to, either point A or point B. You can set FPS, which stands for frames per second, which means for the resulting video, how many pictures should make up 1 second of video. The options are 30, 60, or 120 frames per second. You can set the film duration, which means how long do you want your final video to be. For exposure, you can set the shutter speed of the camera, but this will only apply if your camera's shutter speed is set to bulb. Now the interval sets the amount of time that passes between each photo, and then based on all your inputs, the slider will perform calculations to let you know how many pictures will need to be taken and how long the whole process will take. So let me put my camera in bulb mode and attach the camera to the slider with the included cable. Now once you get your images, it'll be up to you to put them all together into a time-lapse video. So throughout my testing with the time-lapse setting, I did find some little quirkiness issues. For example, when I used my Panasonic GH5 II camera, the camera would actually take videos instead of still pictures. Even when I pressed the take a photo button on the remote, the camera would actually take a video. But that might just be something that I have set on my camera wrong, because when I used it on my Sony a7 III, the camera took pictures just fine. Another thing I found a little off was that with my Sony camera, if I set the exposure to 1 second on the remote, the camera would actually take a 1/10 of a second exposure instead of 1 second. But if I set the exposure to 10 seconds on the remote, then the camera would actually take the correct shutter speed. So it just had something weird with the 1 second exposure. Some other things to mention is that for me, I couldn't really turn on the remote easily or reliably. But in general, I like the Neewer ER-1 slider. As a solo creator, I think it's going to help me to add some movement to my video. And it's really hard when I'm doing it all by myself, so having a motorized slider will definitely help to make things easier. Now if this video has helped you and you're about to pull the trigger on purchasing the slider, please consider using my affiliate link in the video description. Thanks for watching.